The year is 1915. World War I rages across Europe, and as the great European powers clash out on the battlefield, away from the trenches, great linguistic minds are also battling it out to be the first to decipher the recently discovered language of the Hittite Empire. A Czech linguist named Bedřich Hrozný is in a hurry to win that battle. A scholar of ancient languages, Hrozný learned Aramaic, Akkadian, Sanskrit, Sumerian, and Ethiopian as a young university student. And as a Czech living in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, he also speaks fluent German and, of course, Czech. On one of the many clay tablets discovered during the excavation of the ancient city of Hattusha, he finds an interesting passage. The text is written in cuneiform, the ancient script used to write many ancient Persian and Mesopotamian languages. But on these tablets, the script is used to write the Hittite language. The passage reads, Nu ninda an ezateni, watar ma ekuteni. The symbol for ninda meant bread in other ancient languages. Hrozný thought perhaps it meant the same thing here. So what does one do with bread, he thought. He looked at the repeated ending teni, T-T-E-N-I, and he was struck by its similarity to Latin and Sanskrit verb endings. He wondered if it was some form of the verb to eat. The word was similar to the German word essen, to eat. Then he looked at the word watar. Could it possibly be that it was related to the English word water and the Czech word voda? Could it be that easy? Ultimately, he comes up with this translation for the sentence. Now you will eat bread and you will drink water. With that translation, he had just managed to decipher one of the oldest Indo-European languages, the most famous member of the now extinct Anatolian language family, Hittite. Welcome to Jack of All Languages. That fascinating story I just told you is true, and I read about it in Laura Spinney's fantastic new book, Proto, How One Ancient Language Went Global. And if you like language history, I highly recommend checking out that book. The book weaves together the latest in archaeology, genetics, and linguistics to paint a picture of the ultimate ancestor of such diverse languages as German, Latin, Sanskrit, Greek, Albanian, Farsi, and English, and many, many more languages. In today's episode, we take a look at the earliest branch to split off from that ancient ancestor of so many modern languages, the Anatolian language family, whose most famous member, of course, is that language deciphered in 1915 by our Czech friend Bedřich Hrozný. So, without further ado, let's dive into today's story. And to begin with, I want to provide a little bit of context about the ultimate origins of the ancestor of Hittite and all the other Indo-European languages. That ancestor would be Proto-Indo-European, and there are two main theories about its origins. I'm going to tell you both of those theories, but I'm not going to tell you which one to believe because there are people far more qualified to lead that kind of discussion, and there's still a lot of disagreement among the scholars about this question. For a long time, the most widely accepted theory was that Proto-Indo-European originated about 6,500 years ago on the steppe near the Black Sea in modern-day Ukraine and Russia. And from there, the Yamnaya culture, pastoralist nomads who inhabited the steppe and spoke Proto-Indo-European, spread the language south and north, east and west, so that within a couple thousand years, versions of the Proto-Indo-European language were being spoken from Great Britain all the way to India. So that's the steppe hypothesis. The other main theory holds that Proto-Indo-European is actually even older than that it originated in Anatolia about 9,000 years ago, and from there it spread all over Europe and Asia. So the debate has long been Black Sea versus Anatolia, nomads or farmers. In the last couple of years, however, some researchers at the Max Planck Institute have done some amazing studies using Bayesian phylogenetic modeling and a data set of words from 109 modern Indo-European languages and 52 ancient Indo-European languages. And they say that their data suggests a sort of hybrid hypothesis, where the ultimate origin of Proto-Indo-European is somewhere south of the Caucasus, maybe in modern-day Armenia. They suggest a date of around 8,000 years ago, and they acknowledge that the Proto-Indo-European language later probably spread to the steppe, and from there it could have spread to the rest of Eurasia. Some researchers who oppose this view have some issues with these studies, and there's still no consensus on the origin of Proto-Indo-European. But with that said, it's a very exciting time to be studying the Indo-European language because we're getting closer and closer to an answer. Okay, so back to Hittite and back to our friend Hrozný. Hrozný proved, based on similarities to Indo-European languages like Sanskrit and Latin, that Hittite was in fact an Indo-European language. And it turns out that Hittite belongs to the oldest language family to break off from the Proto-Indo-European language, the Anatolian languages. All of these languages are now extinct, but some of its sister languages included Luwian, Palaic, and Lydian. All of these were spoken around modern-day Turkey. From surviving texts, we know that Hittite was being spoken by around 1800 BCE, and that it had disappeared by 1200 BCE. We also know that it had a complex case system just like many other Indo-European languages. So Hittite had 8 cases, and these mostly corresponded to the case systems in Latin and ancient Greek. Unlike these languages, though, Hittite only had 2 main verb tenses. So it had one tense for the past and then one tense combined for the present and the future tense. And it's really pretty different from the other Indo-European languages. And that's why scholars believe that it's the first to split off from Proto-Indo-European. Some scholars even suggest that the Anatolian family is not a daughter of Proto-Indo-European, but rather its sister. In other words, Proto-Indo-European and Anatolian may have split off from an even older common ancestor, and that's why they sound so different from each other. This is a plausible theory, but we don't know that this is true for sure. Another fascinating part of this story is that Hittite features a series of lost consonants that don't exist in the other Indo-European languages. Before Hittite's discovery, the Swiss linguist Ferdinand de Saussure had actually predicted that these lost consonants, the laryngeal consonants, must have existed in Proto-Indo-European due to certain irregularities in sound changes in the daughter languages. And it turned out he was right. These consonants were indeed found in the Hittite language in some of the exact places that de Saussure had predicted they would be. We don't know exactly how they were pronounced, but these are how they're represented in the Proto-Indo-European alphabet. The Hittites ruled an empire from their capital city of Hattusha for around 800 years, and then around the year 1200 BCE, their civilization died out, and their language went with them. It may have been a combination of drought, natural disaster, and civil unrest that brought the empire crumbling down. The city of Hattusha was burned and abandoned. Lucky for us, though, the clay tablets that they wrote on survived the millennia, giving us a glimpse into their history. As for Hrozný, he dedicated the remainder of his career to studying ancient languages, having a go at deciphering Hittite's Anatolian cousin, Luwian. He wasn't able to decipher Luwian, unfortunately, but he did lead an incredible career as an academic, including serving as rector of Charles University in Prague during World War II, where legend has it, when the Nazis invaded, he told them off in perfect German, telling them to leave his university students alone. Thank you so much for watching Jack of All Languages. I hope this story has been interesting, and I hope it's been a good introduction to the Hittite language and the story, the fascinating story of its deciphering. For further reading, I encourage you to check out my bibliography down in the description, and please let me know in the comments what languages you want me to talk about next. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.